So I start here. We're looking back in time. Does anybody know who do this? This guy is a guy by the name of Ancel Keys. And maybe if we all had some darts, we might try and throw them at him right now. Or at the end of the day, you would want to, at least I do. So Ancel Keys was a scientist, and he was around in the within the research field in the 50s, post-World War II. He was apparently a very likeable guy. And so when he did research studies that he thought were good, he got himself into the media quite often. And therefore, whatever he was researching or prescribing got a lot of media attention or got out there to people quite easily. He has one study that stands out and is probably the reason why we eat the way that we do today. And this study was looking at the relationship between fat and heart disease. And what he did is I'll draw it up here. So on this side, do you all hate graphs, or are we okay with graphs? Because I've got quite a few of them today. Can't see? I've got blue. Oh, hold on. Got some others. Oh, that's a bit darker there. Can we see that one? Yeah. Okay. So coming down this side over here, this is the rate of heart disease. Oh. And over here is the amount of fat in the diet. Okay? So the more fat going along that side, and the greater the rate of heart disease. So he looked at different nations, and what he told us is that he looked at 6 nations for this. And right up here at the top, who ate the most fat and had the most heart disease? The Americans. So the USA. Underneath them, Canada. Underneath them, Australia. Underneath them, the UK. Down here, Italy. Down here, Japan. Is that what you would expect? Yeah. That's what you would expect because you've been told to expect that. You've been told that the Japanese are healthy because they eat low-fat diet. And you've been told that the Americans are unhealthy because they have a high-fat diet. Why have you been told this? Because Ancel Keys told you. And everything that Ancel Keys told you has just flown through the last few decades with him. And he drew this beautiful line that shows that there is a direct relationship. The amount of fat that you eat and the rate of heart disease. Directly proportional. That's what we know. But that is the research, or that is what he released from his studies. But then there were some people who thought, that doesn't really make sense. And there were some other people who were great thinkers, thank goodness, out there, and they said, that doesn't make sense. Why doesn't it make sense? Because when Ancel Keys started this study, he didn't start with 6 nations. He started with 22. So where are the others? What's happened to them? And so they went back and saw what sort of results and how did those other countries fit in here. And they started plotting them on this little graph. And you know where they went? Do you think they fitted on this line? Oh no. There were things like this turning up. 22 others, placed all over the place, like this. I can show you the research paper if you'd like. And what does that mean? Does that mean that there was any relationship? There was none at all. There was none in his study there. He just went like this and he said, which countries can we fit into this? Here they are, and I'll cherry pick them, and now I'll make my recommendations. And all these others were swept under the carpet. That's what happened with Ansel Keys. And he got himself on the cover of Time magazine. Did anyone see Time magazine last month?
Yeah.
You know what was on the cover?
Butter.
Butter. Things are shifting. Time magazine often comes up with shifts. There was something, about 10 years after this, there was something about cholesterol and how bad it is for you. Now, they're onto it. There's a little revolution and it's happening. So that's where he came in with all of this. There was another guy, a guy by the name of John Yudkin, and he came out quite vocally and he opposed what Ansel Keys said. And he said, this is wrong. There's no correlation between fat and heart disease or any other disease, and even obesity. The devil here is sugar. And that was his thing. And he wrote a book, and it was called Pure, White and Deadly. So Keys won. Keys won the argument. And this pyramid was put together with that task force and with Keys' instructions. And the guy who put that together, funnily enough, I read about just a few other days, was actually a vegetarian. So he put that pyramid together, but he was, and you look at that, well, what are the main things that are being recommended over there? They are mainly vegetarian-based products. They're all your grains at the bottom, then you've got fruits and veggies, and then you've got stashed up at the top there your fats and your animal products. So that's what happened. And in 1977, the US government and every other Western nation then followed, put out these dietary guidelines. And then, in 1980, what do you think happened then? Sudden increased rates of obesity, heart disease, diabetes, all these lifestyle diseases. They're called the Big Four. In the Big Four, you've got diabetes, you've got heart disease, you've got obesity, and you've also got neurological disorders. The other one that goes up there is dementia. You know what the number one thing related to dementia is? This blew my mind. Low cholesterol levels. How's that? So 1980, we have these increased rates. Suddenly, this massive spike. Correlating with that, we have a big decrease. So it sort of looks like this. Travelling along, here's 1980, and whoop, obesity and heart disease do that. What else goes up alongside this? Whoop, carbohydrate intake. What comes down? Fat intake. That's what happened. That's exactly what happened. Fat went down, carbohydrate went up, and we all got fatter and sicker. It's pretty scary when you read it all like that. The next thing that came along, or the next great president that came along, was Reagan. I don't know about all these presidents too much. I only know about them in terms of what they did to the nutrition of people. And Reagan cut 85% of funding from the National Health Institute for research. So up until that point, all research was funded by independent government bodies. Since that point, who has been funding research studies? Anybody got any ideas? Industry. drug companies, pharmaceutical companies. That's where all the funding is coming from. Do you think that maybe it's slightly biased? Just a bit. 85% of studies today are funded by drug companies. And those drug companies want to sell their product. And that's the bottom line. Is this me coming in with a conspiracy theory? I don't think so. I really don't. I think if we didn't look at these things, we would be being naive about it all. So here we go. That's our history lesson for today. And I hope that's starting to give you, opening your mind up to what possibly might be what we should be eating and who's influencing us and why we're in the state that we currently are. If you take a much further step backwards, we have been around as humans for 2.5 billion years. So if we just make that up as an hour on a clock, so 2.5 billion years is an hour on a clock. You know how long we have been eating grains for? The last 5 minutes. The last 5 minutes, that's it. Because all that time previously, what were we living on? What are we biologically and physiologically meant to be eating? Fat and protein. That's what we should be having. That's what we're made up to have. There's a great example with all the animals out there, and the giraffe is a great one. The giraffe has this long neck because why? Because the leaves that it needs to eat are the highest up on the trees. And when it eats anything else, it gets all sorts of disease, disturbance to gut, and they die. But for us, things became accessible that shouldn't have become accessible because we have higher functioning and whatever else came with it. But if we just stuck to what we should have been eating, like the animals have, we wouldn't have all these health issues that we've got today.
If you would like more information about easy low-carb living, please go to acaciahealth.com.au/nutrition.